Today on the Videomaker podcast, Chris and I talk all about the best products of NAB. This is extra exciting for us because we haven't been to NAB in 2 years. This is the first NAB since 2019, and it actually did happen. Actually, there was NAB online, I think, in actually both years, but it's just not the same that way. So we talk about all of the award winners. If you follow Videomaker on videomaker.com, you may know these already, but if you want to hear us, just sort of shoot the breeze about these things, this is the place to do it. We talk a little bit about some stuff that's not in the articles. So here's the categories. I'll give you the categories now, and you can listen to the podcast for the actual winners. So we're talking about the best video accessory, the best AI live streaming solution, the best cinema camera, the best dock and card reader, the best microphone, the best monitor recorder, the best Ptz camera, the best shotgun microphone, the best storage solution, the best software, the best camera support, and the best tube light. So all of those things and a little bit more coming up. As always, if you've been listening to the podcast and you enjoy it, we'd love it if you went to iTunes or Spotify or some other app and hit the follow button or the subscribe button. It'll deliver the podcast straight to your mobile device whenever we release one, which these days is every other week. So it will automatically download. Great for you, great for us. It's a win-win, so we'd love it if you did that. Okay, all that out of the way, let's get on with the show. But first I want to tell you about MPB. MPB is the world's largest online platform for used photography and videography equipment. MPB is a destination for everyone, whether you've just discovered your passion for visual storytelling or you're already a pro. MPB recirculates more than 300,000 items of used gear every year, extending the life and creative potential of photo and video equipment for visual storytellers around the world. Headquartered in the creative community of Brooklyn, the MPB team includes trained camera experts and seasoned photographers and videographers who bring their passion to work every day to deliver outstanding service. Every piece of kit is inspected carefully by their product specialists and comes with a 6-month warranty to give customers peace of mind that buying used doesn't mean sacrificing on quality or reliability. Visit mpb.com to find out more. Welcome to the Videomaker podcast. I'm Mike Wilhelm, and with me, as always, is Chris Monlux.
Hello.
And Chris, we have another audio update, right?
Yeah. I'm using a condenser microphone, a large diaphragm condenser microphone from Shure. It's the SM27, and just got this in for evaluation for best voiceover microphone. So this is more of a microphone that is not necessarily meant for live performance, but should have a lot more sensitivity and dynamics than, like, say, a dynamic mic like you're using.
So this is the first time we've used a condenser microphone on the podcast.
No, we've used quite a few other ones testing throughout, but really dynamic mics tend to lend themselves better to this on-the-fly recording, compression and everything, whereas you might want to do more noise reduction or scooping of EQs or something on a large diaphragm microphone. So
does that mean you've got a lot of post ahead of you for audio?
Oh, no, everybody will just have to suffer right. If it sounds bad. But I've actually noticed it's my voice has been really sounding really compressed on the recording. So I thought, let's see how this sounds. But we're recording with the same settings. Just actually the board here has like presets for what kind of microphone it is, how loud you speak, and it's actually pretty intuitive questions to setting pretty much your compression and the rest. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. All right. So the topic for today is NAB, and I guess particularly like the most exciting things from NAB. But actually, maybe we should start with just the fact that NAB happened as the exciting thing, or maybe it's not exciting. I'm not exactly sure what my thinking is here, but it's the first in-person NAB in 2 years.
Yeah, and it happened around when it normally happens. It seemed a little later this year than normal, but only by a couple weeks. It's not like how other shows are doing it later this year that are normally earlier in the year shows. It was in Vegas, right? And so it was the first time we've seen like the new part of the convention center, to which I didn't even actually get to go in. You did, though. Yeah. Which is a big, the whole front's got this big swoopy on it, and it looks like a much nicer place to show up to than the other. And of course, you have your Tesla loop that you go between the different convention centers, so we didn't get to use, but
Yeah, the Tesla loop being a Tesla that drives in a tunnel underground.
Yeah. That someone drives you in, like it's not autonomous or anything.
Yeah.
Someone's actually driving you there, and the funny thing is, it's not very far. We're talking about something that takes maybe 5 minutes to walk to, and it probably takes you longer to wait in line for the Tesla.
They should have connected it to the South Hall because that really is a long walk.
Yeah, well, I think they do. On the back end, but the South Hall was not being used, which is really the first thing about NAB is it was smaller, right? It was we were in the new convention area, the new convention center, so they weren't using all of the space that they normally would. But I think even amongst all that, it was still a little bit smaller. Let's see here, it was the Central Hall, which is usually the hall that we spend most of our time in. It was about 3/4 the way.
Probably about that.
And they did a good job of bringing everybody close enough that it felt like a normal trade show, but not so close that you're freaking out too much. But it was nice to see people you haven't seen in a long time. Or I actually met somebody and they're like, "Man, you're a lot taller in person." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess we probably."
You're very short online.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to say that. It wasn't about that, but regardless, it's interesting meeting people for the first time that you've had a professional relationship for a year, with doing stuff. So it was nice to see people, and it wasn't. I can't say the show was like a big announcement show. It wasn't a show that had lots and lots of, or at least even really big stories going on. What did you feel about, like, kind of what was the from the gear to kind of the hubbub that you heard? What do you think the show was about this year?
I feel like the same thing, same way that you did, in the sense that it wasn't a big announcement show. This is the time of year, theoretically, typically, where we get excited about the new cameras. That's when we say the big announcements. That's really what we're talking about, is the cameras. And boy, we kind of knew everything about all these cameras, and they were announced quite a while ago.
Yeah, well, and not that many cameras were even released in the 90 days around the show,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
There was very few to choose from that were actually even talked about, as being really, at the show. And I think it was a lot of people's shows back. Like, not a lot of other brands have been at least sending the people that they normally do to convention centers for the last 2 years that they've been going to this one.
Yeah, I did think typically we can look back and we can identify some sort of big theme of each show. For a couple of years it was, motorized gimbals. Yeah. For a while it was drones. It was 4K for a while. This year, if I had to peg a theme on anything, it might be PTZ cameras, I guess. Yeah,
my takeaway was, in 2019, everybody was talking about live streaming. It was, people were starting to find roots in value in live streaming. They're able to find ways to fit it into their business, and a lot of companies were making solutions, but they weren't complete solutions. It was kind of the Wild West when it came to live streaming in general, but it was a big story. And I feel like this show, mostly because of the big gap, was live streaming realized. Mm-hmm. It was everything was a next generation. It wasn't that first one they made. It was the second one. Or if it was a first generation, it was responding to a need that has been created over the last couple of years with the rapid growth of live streaming. And of course, just the ability to do a lot of things that really would have, required a live van in some places for you to do, like being able to send video over IP to anywhere in the world. That seemed like a interesting idea, but pretty hard in the way of actual realization. Whereas I saw a couple different options for you at the show that were, if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to be sending video over IP, there's lots of different solutions there. And we, of course, saw a lot of PTZ camera companies, and there was a lot of them that were there. It's kind of interesting. And PTZs in general, if you've ever gone and perused on Adorama or B&H in the PTZ camera area, a lot of them look a lot alike. And I imagine that a lot of them are being made in the same factory or whatnot, that it's just put brand A or on here. And we see that, but I think we're also seeing breakout of that. Whereas we're seeing some that are trying to define themselves as different by offering either features that aren't anywhere else or value where there wasn't before.
Yeah, I do know that a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but at least some companies are just getting their PTZ cameras from, they're kind of pre-designed, manufactured in China.
Yeah.
So, it's a big sector right now. The PTZ sector is just like going crazy as people want to do more live productions, and staff workers are harder to find. PTZ is just like it's their time to shine right now. So it makes sense that people are going to do whatever they can to get their hands on some product.
Yeah,
try to capitalize on that.
One angle that I hadn't really thought too much about with PTZ cameras was, of course, the first thing you think about of a robot replacing a human at operating camera. And yeah, that happens, right? But now that also might mean you have more camera angles and just the same amount of camera shooters. But the bigger thing was that it would free up those people that you still want to keep working, but you want them making content. You want them doing something else that's not just standing manning a camera, because it's not necessary. And I think that is that was pretty. It hit home for me because I don't like the idea of like things becoming more autonomous. I don't like the AI editing. Bums me out. Like I enjoy doing the montage to music. What do you mean this thing will do it for me? That's fun. It'll take my fun away. But I think that it's nice when you can when it means that actually you're going to be able to do more creative, and that's exciting because I've known camera operators at the TV station that were just standing there, pedestaling up, doing a pan, moving it over. And what a boring job that you have to wake up at 3 a.m. to do. It's pretty, you're not doing anything crazy. I mean, the most you're going to do is that opening shot to the news where you get to like do the push in and the two shot or something. But I'm excited to see that maybe those people they'll be able to reallocate those resources to more content making.
Yeah. So should we go through the our product picks?
Yeah, let's do it. I got to get my phone out since I don't have a computer.
Yeah, great. So while you're doing that, I'll just mention, every year we give out Best of NAB Awards. It's 12. The number is 12. Don't ask me how we got to 12. It's a long and boring story. Yeah. But we give out 12 awards every year. And these are not evaluations. We haven't tried these products, so we're calling them Best of NAB, having not tried them, because they are notable for some reason, or they're at least the most interesting version of this based on what we learned and what's on paper.
And they're new, right? These are new products. Exactly. This is highlighting these new to the market products. And we're saying these are notable. And we did get to touch them. All the stuff that we did, we get to see demos of and all the rest. But of course, controlled demos and all the rest. So this is all things that we're going to put on our list to go, hey, we need to get these in to evaluate. So you go to our buyer's guide, so always check those out. But it's always interesting learning and I think we tend to lean in on people that are being innovative, that we tend to try to give awards to innovative directions of technology. So with that said, let's get to the list, I guess.
Yeah, actually one more caveat before we talk about the first one, which is our best PTZ. In some cases, a thing comes out in a category which is the best of the new things that were announced or that were announced recently, but aren't necessarily still the best thing on the market. As in, the thing that came out a year ago might be better than this thing in this category. So all that is to say that this is something to give you a list of products to keep an eye on, but we're not officially endorsing them yet. Okay, so number one. And this is in no particular order. We'll just start with Best PTZ because it's at the top of the list. BZB Gear. And this is a very long product name. BZB Gear is the brand name. The BG ADAMO 4KND. The BG ADAMO 4KND. Best PTZ of NAB. And this is a crowded category.
Yeah. We saw a lot of PTZs, and really it came down to value for this one. It gave us the feature set that you would hope to get in 4K, and was really the best value of the show. We got to see a lot of other PTZs, but still not a lot that would have been released relatively recently. But I do see that there's a lot of gearing up right now to release the next version of PTZ cameras from a lot of manufacturers. That's their 4K version. And this is just the one that we thought was the best value for a feature set.
Yeah, and actually, before we get too much further, I'm just realizing that this might be a relatively new term for some people because the category is just sort of catching on. PTZ camera is a pan-tilt zoom camera. It's a robotic head that you can control remotely. This one is it's not exactly cheap. It looks like they're aiming at $2,600 or $2,700 for the one with the further zoom. But it's a camera that you can control remotely, 60 frames per second, 4K. And the interesting thing here, at least from my perspective, is a 25x zoom, and all controllable over NDI, which is New Tech's platform for video over IP.
Yeah. And it's, you'd say $2,600, but there's a lot of features for the money. Usually these are over 3,000. Now it's just an interesting thing because really, PTZ cameras are camcorders with a robot connected to them, right? So you can control all the stuff outside of them. And so it kind of reminds me, well, they're not sexy. There's nothing that you're like, oh man, check out this. I mean, given actually there are some that I've gone like, oh, look at that. But it's still not like I'm drooling over the image I saw. It's just, it's usually like, whoa, look at all the things that thing can do. And this checked all the boxes. I think NDI is here to stay as pretty much the standard when it comes to transmitting video, because you can also send video, transmit and receive. You can do all the controlling of the PTZ and power it all over a Cat9 cable. Yeah.
So these are going to be great obviously for live streamers. Good for churches that are doing live streams.
Yeah. This is or any place that you're installing cameras for more coverage. I went to a performance at the Performing Arts Center at the local high school, and I was just really surprised they didn't have a bunch of cameras up there, because I don't know how many times they probably do performances that there's parents or grandparents or someone that is not able to make it that would probably love to watch a live stream of those events. And I'm sure there's some kids that would love to operate them to get to learn how to do that. But definitely really useful in those spaces.
So moving on to best accessory, which is the Atomos Connect, which it's a module for the Ninja 5 and Ninja 5 Plus.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. It connects to two different services that they're now trying to offer. One is that this is for cloud to camera. So you connect it to your Ninja 5, Ninja 5 Plus via the back battery, just the way the Atomos Connect connects to it, or like any kind of battery accessory for a cinema camera, just connects using that port, and gives you some antennas. And the idea is it's sending video up to a cloud to which you can access from anywhere using all of their own proprietary everything, so that you can be sending, as you capture your clips, a proxy up to Frame.io, and you can then use Frame.io to immediately start editing, and someone can go, oh, hey, you're slightly overexposed when they're in the edit suite while it's being shot, so that you can quicken up that speed. And the big thing there is just how much data you're transferring. So the service is pay to play, and as far as that goes, it is, well, of course, Frame.io wants to charge you however much to do the same kind of thing. But this is their camera to cloud. I heard this quite a few different times, and it was it was implemented in very different ways. I do believe it was, it's a nice idea, and I'm glad we're moving towards it. And this is really innovative from them. I was surprised because it's a closed system that's not NDI for sending video and or using SRT or anything else like that to make it stable. It's using their own servers and everything, but it also comes with the ability that once you say connect your Ninja 5, you have a whole bunch of them, and you put the backpack on them there, and you connect these different cameras. Now they're actually inputs that you could do a live stream and switch from the cloud. So we could have the cameras we have going on right now, they'd both be going up into the cloud, and then anybody from anywhere with a browser can then switch between them with very low latency, and be able to do like playback, like rewind, all sorts of different interesting things, even controlling like automated control panels that you could actually be adjusting the volume of a channel, and it could be changing the automation on a board and actually physically be moving a fader. Very interesting, but of course also a pay-to-play service that Atomos. I always say it wrong, but that seems to be the way they say it. Atomos.
It's Atomos, not Atomos.
Yeah, Atomos. Yeah,
or Atmos.
Atmos. Yeah, it depends on where the person's from that said it, I think. But Really a neat product. I think it's like $2 or $3.99. $3.99. So if this is something that could work in your space, it's probably actually really affordable. And then they have pretty much a new Shogun that this is built into. So it's the same thing as before. I think it's a little brighter, but they have this little the connect part built into the camera. So I imagine, or into the monitor. So I imagine over time they're going to be doing this kind of thing more. But it's interesting, and I thought it was cool just for the sake of its. Instead of having to buy a whole new Ninja, you can buy this accessory and then get a whole bunch more capability out of it. If, of course, any of this capability would actually help you with your workflow.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned it, but that was the other thing I forgot about is the whole camera to cloud concept. And there's a bunch of different companies that kind of offer the same basic service. But everyone's chasing this thing that I think Frame.io has been doing for a few years. Yeah,
well, at least they're the first to like have support of the idea, and then now hardware is kind of following up on that. But we're still talking bandwidth, is going to be the name of the game. It's interesting. It's the idea that every single piece of your equipment would be then using the internet to send its video feeds somewhere else. Just makes me think you're going to be using a lot of bandwidth. So this might not be a tool that you can use in a lot of locations because there's just not going to be the amount of bandwidth to send that data up. But I heard a lot of, and then you will rejoin it with the hero file. So the idea is you're making these really lightweight proxy files that go up into Frame.io that are probably 720 and real low bit rate. Someone can get to editing it, and then you just relink with the actual native footage that you shot after you bring that back to the place, and then that way they can not miss a step, but they can, just like a proxy workflow in general, you'd be able to go back to your native or as they called it, hero footage.
That's the first time I've heard that term.
Hero footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I missing? Have you heard that before?
I've heard hero shot, and that's the reason why. Thing, right? Yeah, but it's like going back to your hero footage, which is your
the source stuff, footage. The original stuff.
Yeah, your source. Yeah. And I heard that quite a few different times, a couple different locations that was kind of the way they're getting around it. And really the big hope would be that we don't end up having to do the proxy at all. We have enough bandwidth. You can just send that real-time data.
Wouldn't that be great, right?
Well, and that's the idea, I think, of more of like the NDI or direct IP stuff, that you actually are opening up a port for just sending the data instead of having to like sidechain it.
Yeah. Oh, and even Frame.io, I asked them about the whole bandwidth issue, and they're touting, I think Teradek makes it just like these big devices that strengthen your LTE signal or your 5G signal to try to bolster that. But bandwidth is, even for proxies, is still a little bit of a limiting factor.
Yeah, the way to get around it, just like any kind of live stream, is you're going to use bonding. You're going to be using Wi-Fi, your 5G, your landline, whatever you can connect all together so that you have a fallback, but as well as it can be sending packages over multiple streams and stuff. But it's still going to be a source location, of bandwidth that you're going to have to deal with.
Okay, moving on to best shotgun mic, the Audio Technica BP28.
Yeah, these things. So this is really interesting. First time I've seen one, and it's a, you normally your shotgun mics are what they call pencil condensers, which is a small capsule condenser with a big old long, I'm just going to call it a snoot, a big long capsule that is ported in a way to give you more directionality of your microphone, making the pickup pattern more narrow so that you can point it at something and it's only going to pick up that thing you're pointing it at. So you have the idea of that, and I'm sure everybody's seen really long shotgun mics and really shorter ones, and everybody gets around that. Now, what they're doing is going, hey, we're actually going to make a large diaphragm condenser shotgun mic. So it's more like what I'm talking on now, is it's a larger diaphragm, so of course it has better dynamic range, better low-end pickup response, and then I think they said a smaller noise floor because it's a higher quality capsule or something like that. So it's a much bigger microphone. It looks kind of funny how big around it is. It's more like the size of a $50 versus like a quarter, which is like a shotgun mic that would be there. But it's a higher end. So we're talking like, I think $1,000 and $1,200 for the two different versions. One's a little bit longer than the other to get a more direct, pick a pattern. But yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. Still, also a show with not a huge amount of microphone announcements. I thought it was cool to see an innovation in a place that I don't know if anybody's even asking for it, but it is a competitive difference that others might not be making them yet.
The microphone category generally, microphone comes out and it's around for years, if not decades. So I'd imagine the microphone companies are just like constantly looking for something new to make.
Well, a good case in point is Shure is celebrating the 50th year anniversary of the SM58. So now you can get it in neon or green.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So yeah, they didn't change anything about the mic. It's just gaudy now.
Yeah,
but
boy, what a business that would be in, right? B2B, and so you could just make a product and sell the same product for 50 years without really changing it at all.
Like I'm going to make the white version now. All right,
yeah.
But I mean,
even like Cheez-Its come out with crazy spicy Cheez-Its and stuff.
They haven't. I mean, more recently, but for a long time it was just the Cheez-Its, right?
Yeah. Okay, moving on. So let's see. Data Video PTR10 wins best support.
Yeah, we gotta talk to these companies about what they name their products.
I know, yeah, man.
Especially the American companies tend to like. I'm going to give you alphabet soup.
I feel like it's the Japanese and Korean companies
really?
that do that. I mean, in America, for example,
yes, you're right.
We have GoPro Hero.
Yeah.
And what's the Sony version of the action cam?
FDR-X. Yeah. It's got a name and a number.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, it's same with vehicles, right? You have your number letter and then a number for your European and Asian cars, and then you have the Mustang, and you have that Ford Taurus. That's a tough one.
At any rate, this is it's basically like it's a PTZ head.
Yeah,
basically no camera.
So yeah, you throw what I think they were showing with is the Micro Four Thirds Panasonic Lumix cameras, so the GH5, GH6, and the box, the BGH1 and SH. Let's see here, it's BSH1, which is like the SH1. Anyway, and putting them in there, and then it has a control for your focus and your zoom and all the rest, and it can do all the panning and everything, and you connect it there, so then you can have your interchangeable lens camera on a PTZ, which I think is pretty rad. If you say mix some of those in with some regular PTZ cameras, so you have whatever the great shot is that you have of maybe the minister or the band leader or whatever, he's going to look really great and have shallow depth of field, and then everybody else is going to be in deep depth of field. But
yeah, it's going to be this constant trade-off between one shot looks really cinematic, right, and the others look like regular TV.
Yeah, or I guess you could do it as a front and back. So like whenever you're showing the people running the church service, and then when you show the attendees, they're all in all deep focus, and that's no big deal. But yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to see. I mean, I've not really even watched a church service all the way through of how they use them, but I don't know how important it is to see the audience during a live stream church service.
I don't know. I'd imagine if there was some music playing or something, you want to see people dancing or something.
Maybe, but the whole goal is to be there for yourself and to talk to God. So it's everybody's there by themselves with God. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking for myself, but it's kind of a weird thing to look at people while they're worshiping. You're looking forward. That's why none of the pews are looking at each other.
Maybe it varies church by church.
Yeah, probably.
So really cool thing about this is that it's basically turns your a really good camera into a PTZ. You could really. You were talking about how the regular PTZs aren't very sexy, right? Yeah. This takes maybe a mildly sexy camera and turns it into a PTZ.
Yeah, I mean, both the box cameras look just as good as their full size cameras. I think this would be pretty rad. I mean, for our situation here, I would love to have two of them and then be operating it. And then, our look wouldn't change at all versus when I've done a live stream with just a PTZ. It's nice. We have nice lighting, so the image ends up looking nice, but you don't just get that nice, blurred out background.
Right. Okay, next up is the best dock and card reader is the SanDisk ProDock 4 and the Pro Reader ecosystem. This is a product that's not exactly, the category isn't really new. I think Lexar made one of these many years ago. But it's it's a dock system for card readers. interchangeable.
Yeah, but then it's harnessing today's connectivity, right? So before, I remember the Lexar ones, it was like, I don't know if the data on the cards, the read speeds were faster than like the USB at the time. So it was like not a big deal. But now we're dealing with media that can be captured very quickly, on say a CF Express Type B. Is that right? I don't know. The fastest stuff, you're talking much faster than normal readers. So this is something that you use to connect multiple card readers together so you can offload all at the same time. But it also, for like Mac users, the benefit is you get more ports and you get them connected there, as well as if you have a laptop, you can get power off of it because it's giving you enough to power your MacBook Pro off a Thunderbolt. And just overall, I think, headphone port and all the rest as far as that goes. But the big thing is it gives you that fast Thunderbolt speed, so you can connect all of everything through it. And if you need to just go, your desk can just have that instead of a bunch of dongles. I mean, I have a drawer full of card readers, and none of them stack on each other. Even if they did, they don't look very good. They're not really meant to like work together. They might like exist together, but they're not working in the same space. Whereas this one, they're removable. You can then take them individually, the card readers, and use them on the go. So like in my case, I travel a lot, and if I'm using whatever camera I'm using, I can just bring the card reader from that, and I don't have to have another one. Although we have multiple of everything, it seems to be. I think most people wouldn't just get them all the time like we do.
So it's not exactly cheap, but again, this is for people who, they want to have a nice permanent professional setup, and they need to offload footage in a hurry.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot better for a DIT.
Yeah.
Someone that is offloading on location, that needs to offload fast so that they can get the media back out to get written again. For just any type of, if you're making a lot of data, it's just going to be a lot easier to offload them quickly, so you don't have a bottleneck of offload. Now, given with media the price it is right now, maybe you have just more cards, but still, I've had times where, I had to sit there and wait for the media to offload because I had so much, and getting to take advantage of Thunderbolt really is beneficial. But yeah, we're talking, what is it, like $500 just for the dock, and then like $100 to $150 per card reader that goes inside it. So you're talking $1,000 all in. So if you don't really need it, it's quite an excess.
Yes. Okay. Best monitor recorder is Bird Dog Core, which is a line of recorders.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool because it includes NDI in it, right?
Yeah. Yep, that's right.
And so it's kind of like what we were talking about with the Atomos Connect, but with and using NDI instead of their own proprietary one. As well as, I'm not sure how long Bird Dog's been in the monitor recorder making space, but there hasn't been a whole lot of competition for Atomos.
That is something that's notable here, which is that Atomos is a shoe-in for this category every time we do one.
Because their competition have slowly gone out of the market. Everybody that makes one. Yeah. Blackmagic makes one, but they tend to not be as universally beneficial to a camera operator. They're going to benefit all the Blackmagic operators, but Atomos stuff seems to support a lot of other camera manufacturers. Well, they're not a camera manufacturer, but this one I felt it was really notable and really interesting because then it also is converting your input to an NDI signal if you'd want. So it can be recording, but you can also then be sending that feed to someone to live switch with it or whatever you need to use it for.
Yeah, so it basically combines the monitor and recorder capability with like an NDI Spark or something if you needed to connect it to some device that didn't have NDI already. Yeah,
an encoder into NDI.
Yeah.
And so that's nice to be, that it's, you get the benefit from NDI even if you don't need it. And I think that we're going to find it just offered in a lot more products because it's like, well, why not? If they don't have to pay a proprietary to keep it, to put it in the product, it seems to be a nice feature to offer in a lot of things. I would imagine there's going to be more cameras with it just offered as an output option.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what's next. It's going to be best storage, the Simply Spark XT.
Yeah, you got to see and get the demo of this one.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to remember about it now. It's basically just a big Thunderbolt 3 RAID.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this is it uses these Seagate drives. They're spinning disk drives, but they are, I'm trying to remember the exact tech. There's either 2 disks or they're double-sided spinning in there at the same time. So at any rate, what it does is it gets you close to or faster than SSD speeds in spinning disk capacity. So this thing has, let's count them up, like 8 bays. So this is a beefy piece of storage.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Exactly, it's $9,600.
But we're talking about large amounts of storage, and you can compare this to like the LaCie products, the 12 big, or like the shuttle from SanDisk Pro, the G-Tech, what was G-Tech's shuttle. And the shuttle's been one that people have been using because it's got a handle on it. It's meant to be, taken in places. And their answer to that is that you can get a optional Pelican case with it. As well, what I thought was kind of neat is they sell like disk replacement kits. So you can bring along with you a spare. This reminds me of my dad. He's a big car guy, and whenever he goes on a long trip with a car, like the dude will bring an extra starter and an extra alternator and extra belts. So if anything goes wrong on the road, you can just fix it and you can keep moving on. And I think that's really valuable if you are, say, using storage off location and you need it to always be working and not to be able to fail at all. It's pretty cool to have a little set, but it does communicate something kind of weird, which is, hey, you want to buy this thing for when our thing fails, which is kind of weird, but all hard drives fail eventually.
Yeah.
So, and you can't ever really understand why sometimes, and sometimes it's misuse, but cool product. Another brand that, I wasn't expecting to be, competing with the big boys as far as, the SanDisk and LaCie space.
Yeah, which is interesting because LaCie is owned by Seagate. You'd think they'd have a RAID with these new Seagate drives.
They probably do.
They didn't tell us were just had a very anemic presence.
Yeah.
Seagate did. But at any rate, so it's, again, pretty expensive, $9,600. Comes with 8 14 terabyte drives. Again, it's 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and the read speed is 2,300 megabytes per second.
That's fast. That's
fast for a spinning disk.
Yes, yeah. That's very fast. I mean, that's faster than that's all spinning disks I have. It's like it tops out at 2,600 megabytes per second, and that's like if you're writing a really easy file to transfer.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Moving on, going down the list here. Where was it here? I lost my place. Oh, best software, LiveView Air Control.
Yeah, this is something that I, when you told me about it, I'm like, I've had people ask me, they need something like this. So what is it, Mike?
It's basically a piece of, it's kind of like cloud software that queues up, I'm going to call it guests, I guess, queues up feeds in a live stream. So the idea is if you're doing a live show and you have remote guests who are all kind of like going to be on and doing an interview, Air Control basically takes all of these feeds and puts them into a system so that someone can queue people up and say, okay, this person's going up next, and everyone else is sort of waiting in this sort of prep area in the software.
Yeah, and that's especially on like smaller, like if we were doing someone with a guest right now, we wouldn't be able to chat for a while and then like, we're bringing up our friend. I guess we could, but they'd have to probably just sit there and wait, and it would be awkward and not probably the best setup. Where this is like they can communicate back and forth. It's kind of like a green room before you're going on the set to doing interview, and it just allows for a little bit more of that production value to bring to your live stream. Now, did you say that it had something to do that you're able to like line up like Skype guests and do windows of that as well?
It actually uses a third-party solution, not third-party, but it's a piece of software that LiveView uses for the actual webcam itself.
Oh, okay.
So it brings all these things in, and the guests use, again, this LiveView software, And the interesting thing about it is the live view software doesn't allow the guests to like mute themselves, or they might not even be able to turn off their camera. But the idea is that it prevents the guest from like causing interruptions in the stream by clicking the wrong button or something, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone is just queued up. The idea is really like if you have 6 or 7 people who are supposed to come on, that they can all be ready. They can all the streams can be coming through all at the same time while only one is actually active and on the screen at a time.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's I don't know how many times I've watched the news now, and it's like someone will start talking.
Yeah,
and they're like, "You're on mute, buddy."
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Blah, blah, blah,
exactly,
blah. Keep
exactly.
going.
It happens every time, like every call too, right?
Yeah, exactly. On video calls. And I saw a couple different things, which we maybe will cover next, is a solution that we saw from Vislink. But they also had like a camera in a box that was pretty interesting. That was a PTZ inside a box that has everything it needs to do to be able to transmit video with it, but also has a XLR input, like a little audio interface in the front, a little preview screen, and it allows you to pretty much send a feed so that the person has something to look at, or you could fill it up with, whatever you need to do, but that they could also adjust the audio. And so you have one, it could be all controlled by someone somewhere else, or they could do it there, but it was just send this box to them and you're going to have a nice, all they have to do is, and it had, I'm not sure if it had lights in there, but it all kind of collapsed into itself. It was pretty neat.
Maybe a good segue to that category, which is best AI live streaming solution, Vislink IQ Sports Producer.
Yeah, and this, you wouldn't think sports producer. I don't know. I actually see the application for this being a lot broader than what they're naming it for. But the idea here is that they have 4 4K cameras in an array that they are stitching together, and then they're using AI software to track the action, so that, and it takes a HD square out of that and then tracks. So you could set this up at, like, say, a soccer game, and you could see both goals from this camera array, and that the computer would actually be following the action just based on what it's seeing in the frame. And because nothing's actually moving, it's not needing to be reactionary. And then on top of that, you actually could cut in other cameras. So you could actually, whenever it gets into a region, so say someone goes into a space, it would automatically cut to another camera. So say if you had a camera that was, someone was just like a free camera in the end zone, say, or something like that, and you only go there during the touchdowns, it could automatically cut it to somebody just operating a camera there. And the idea here is honestly to not have a operator at all, is to set it all up. So it might be college soccer or whatever game or facility it would be in, and just set it all up and then turn it on, and it would be live streaming following the action so people could watch the game from somewhere else. But I thought this would be also very useful in churches or in just really a lot of other types of live streaming that maybe the action isn't as broad, because the idea here is that it's covering a really big spectrum. But the big catch on that is none of that's available yet, because their program is only tracking sports at the moment. So they hopefully will open it up a little bit later. But they also had another triggered live streaming setup where as soon as someone would talk, it would cut to them, and then it would stay there for however long you want, or do a little small zoom out and then cut to somebody else or to a wider shot, and it would do that all automatically. But it was a lot of money. Whereas this thing was, although still not cheap, was pretty much a turnkey box for $5,000, and was kind of an all-weather camera that you can the camera arrays. They're just the box cameras that you might see in security cameras and that kind of stuff, but that they stitch them all together, and it seemed like a really cool solution for places that probably have a strong need but have no ability to do it because of the HR required.
So, Chris, learning what we learned about at NAB this year, and just kind of watching the industry in general, does it seem like the live camera operator role is under threat? Like, I don't know.
I think in places where the talent of the operator is not terribly important, then it's fine. But like the guy that's following the golf ball at the golf game, that guy's got talent. I don't see us teaching a computer to do that very well yet, because he's doing focus, he's doing a lot of other stuff. But yeah, I mean, man, if they had LiDAR on there, or in every ball had just even a chip for it to follow, it could do that no problem.
Yeah.
But or I'd say maybe football might be a better one, where like they're at a medium shot of the quarterback and they know just when to go wide enough to follow the football and be knowing the action enough to then, end on a tight shot of the receiver of a football. Like, I imagine you can over time probably train a machine to do those things, but I don't think I think that's still, I mean, the cameras that they're operating are such a high cost that I don't imagine that they will trust machines quickly yet. I mean, even the sideline cameras when I went to the Packers game last year, like someone was pushing the dolly from front to back at the stadium. I mean, this is it was Packers versus Bears, very big game. The game had been sold out, and it was a game that mattered. And, they're still having someone pushing a truck, from one side to the rest of this just to get the best location. It's like, well, that could be a car. That kind of technology's been here for a long time. It could just be driving a little bit forward, but there's still a guy pushing a bar. And I think that just, how quickly you can do stuff when things are still just manually being able to be operated might make the, relying on machines to do it that much harder. But I think once you connect a computer to it, you could probably train it a lot better.
Yeah. We'll see what happens in 20 years.
20 years. I think it depends on, if there's still a lot of money in it, we'll probably either find other uses for people to do that or something else. But when the camera operator is the cheapest part of the equation, like, someone shooting a camera that's got a $250,000 lens on it, I still think that they're probably not putting a lot of research into replacing that guy yet, because he's not the most expensive part in the system.
Yep. Well said. Okay, moving on. Best tube light, the Nano Light Pavo Tube T87X.
Yeah, another fun name. So this looks just like a lightsaber that you'd buy at like Walmart for $15.
It's kind of like the ice light.
Yeah, it's got a handle on it. It's a tube light, so it goes all the way around. It also is. It's RGB WW, but so it can be an effects light, so you can actually send something in it, and it has pixels in it, so it can do looking like it burns up or does all sorts of different colors and stuff. It's meant to be, you can control it with Bluetooth with your phone, but it's $100. It's pretty cheap, and I think of it just as an effects light. If you need any color and you need a battery operated light, this thing could probably fit just about anywhere, and it'll work really well. And you have it. I think it had a TLCI rating of like 96, so still pretty decent when you're shooting in a white light.
I like these tube lights for accent lights. If you need to tuck them behind something, and but also I don't know if they've got a mount or anything on here. They're just good, kind of versatile soft lights. Yeah,
well, I think it does. I think it has a 1/4-20 on the bottom of it, and then this was along with a whole bunch of other tube lights that they make. They make from like 1 foot, 2 foot, 4 foot, 8 foot tubes, and those are really. They're really nice when you need a really big light source, but not a lot of light from it. If your subject is looking like they're standing next to something that's bright from head to toe, it's going to be really nice to have that. I think lighting green screens with this kind of thing, so you have even light going all the way around it, and then you don't even have to have anything in the frame would be really nice. Just being able to use the lights. And this thing's like 3 feet, and it's $100. I don't know. I just think of it's neat enough that it could be in the shot. Even, it's unique and interesting. It was the cheapest one of their lights that they had, but it still, I thought, was just a good. It's just something good to have in your toolbox. I think it was affordable enough that it would make sense. Just like, I'm going to have this to have around, because I feel like it's helpful enough for enough situations that you could set it up and use it. I know that the tube light, the Westcott
ice light,
the ice light that we have, it's great. It doesn't last that long. The battery dies 20-30 minutes.
Yeah. We've had it for a long time though.
We have, and battery operated lights in general. Like if you're setting it up and you need it to work for a long time, plug it in.
Right.
And so I think that's the only thing to deal with there.
You mentioned green screen. Seems like it'd be good if you even if you needed it for a minus green in a pinch.
Yeah, well, I think honestly as a rim light, it'd be amazing. It's the same power over both your shoulders and your head. It can go right above somebody. This thing's plastic, so like it's not going to take get some tape and tape it to the ceiling. It's not going to be a big deal. They don't get hot, so it's just like really an easy tool to just be helpful in many different ways. I mean, I'm surprised at how much I use these little lights that I have that are, just little, they might last 20 minutes, but you put it behind something and all of a sudden it's backlit. It's like, it just all of a sudden looks beautiful because it's got a rim all the way around it.
Yep. Okay, moving on. Best overall mic, best mic, the Neumann miniature clip mic system. Maybe the first time we've ever given an award to Neumann.
Yeah, well, and this is of course they show it on a violin and all this kind of stuff. But the idea here is it's a really small, high quality mic that's on the end of a gooseneck, so it can be arranged any way you want. And I could see this being a really nice mic to be able to, like, say you have a scene that's on, that's in, like, sitting at a couch or something like that. You could have a potted plant there. You could pretty much connect this mic to that, and fit it on a practical or something else. And it's, for a Neumann mic, relatively inexpensive. I think it's like $650. But they have mics that are $4,000 to $8,000 in the Neumann space. And Neumann's they pretty much invented the microphone and have been around. Just about any mic you've ever seen on film has likely been a Neumann. Every time you've ever seen the Beatles in the recording studio, they were using Neumanns. Usually the first question that someone asks is, what Neumanns do you have, when they're evaluating what recording studio to use. So they're definitely on the audio recording space, and they showed a really great use of it by connecting it to a violin, so you could have a really high quality mic close, whereas usually smaller mics you lose quality to make them really small, and so it'd be a nice use in that case. But this was also, I thought it was really kind of neat technology that they're fitting it in such a small space. So
yeah, and for the purposes of video. It's particularly interesting, at least for me, as a microphone that you can hide. Yeah,
and it's really small. I mean, you're talking, like my thumb is, and it's a really high quality mic for being that. And then with a gooseneck, it can be really moved in the perfect way you need to.
Okay, so let's see. I think it's literally the last one on the list, which is best cinema camera, the Canon EOS R5C.
Yeah,
which actually is not absolutely new as of NAB, but new enough.
Yeah,
it kind of speaks to the how slow it was in terms of camera releases.
Yeah, I mean, the only other cameras we're seeing were PTZs. Blackmagic released a new version of a camera that just updates it, and then the GH6. And that's, we labeled this best cinema camera, I think, when we thought we were going to see more other cameras as well. But what it does is it answers all of the problems that the R5 have with shooting video, which I actually happen to be on the R5 right now, but that it's a high resolution sensor, but it gets real hot when shooting in 8K. And so this has got a fan on it. It gives you more usability in the video space. Of course, gives you all the cinema features that you'd expect from a camera it's called a cinema camera. And I think I haven't gotten to use one yet, but it's made to work really in tandem with their new lenses, the 180 lens, and be able to do things that are a little bit outside of the normal realm, being that it's a high resolution sensor, and that they're putting out a camera that can shoot 8K in high resolution. So I guess 8K is high resolution, but I'm excited to see how when it comes in, and it seems to be. It's interesting seeing how what Sony has done with say the FX3, which is their cinema version of the A7S3 or A7S4, A7S3, and that they're kind of the same camera, just in a different a body, with same difference with a Panasonic Lumix and their mirrorless and their box cameras. It's moving into a different form factor, but really the same camera, whereas this is all of the things that it needed to be as a video camera. They did that, and then it also can shoot all those same still things that the R5 normally could, but now you can do all the video features as well, which I like to think that if they were going to make the mirrorless cameras for video people, they'd probably even still charge us more even if they didn't shoot photos.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah, it's always 20 to 30% more for the same idea.
Which is lame. But at the same time, I'm happy that actually this is a trend we've been seeing happening for a few years now, that finally, the camera companies are putting all their video features into this body, basically these hybrid style bodies.
Well, and not only that, but that they're accepting it's the same camera. They're just making a video, a cinema version of it. And I think that's really, that's a long way. I mean, we've been talking to lens companies for how long, that unless they called it a cinema lens, they're like, that's not for video.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go talk to 100 videographers, and why don't we find out how many of them are using still lenses? It's like, I bet you a large majority of them are, because it isn't necessary in a lot of cases. I mean, it's great to have cinema lens. I'd love to have it. But if you want autofocus, or if you don't need to have a follow focus, or other things that a still lens would be weaker at, pay less, get awesome glass that, I've never been disappointed other than, they don't have hard stops on the focus, whatever.
So Canon also announced a new Cine Zoom. And I guess we should probably ask for one of these, right? When we asked for our loaner for the new camera, send it with one of these Cine Zooms, the 45 to 135.
That's a nice throw.
Yeah.
But 45, I don't know. You're pretty much already talking to telephoto the whole time. But they have other ones that are, like, I think they have the 18 to 80 or something like that. It seems like a spectrum they have. But another one in their line. My buddy who shoots stocks, he now, when he's making his kit, those are the lenses he goes to. He's like, no, it's really nice having all of the servo controls on them. They look really nice. Mm-hmm. And he's even adapting them on some Aries. So, it's enough that he's willing to adapt the lenses on there. And I think it's just, you get some of that newer technology in a cinema lens, whereas normally it's like manual everything, right?
Yep. And if they agree, I imagine they'll deliver it in person, right? That's $22,000 lens.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Cine Zooms in general, even if they're not servo powered, are expensive. I mean, the Zeiss ones are about the same price, and I mean, it seems absurd. But then Coke releases a new lens for $60,000, and you're like, oh, so you're just going to sell them to the rental houses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
Same idea as RE and high end Reds too. It's like, they know that no one's actually buying these; they're just renting them, and so they'll just find out what the rental houses want and make that.
Yep. That's it. That's the 12 products.
Yeah, it was a good show. It was good to see people, and it'll be interesting to see how they continue. If we have waves, if that'll ever affect how they go in the future. But it was good to get back with everybody. I heard a little bit of sentiment that I thought was really interesting. Was they decided not to be at NAB because they thought their product was consumer. And it's making some manufacturers go, oh, I always went to NAB because other brands went there that we compete with. And I think everybody in that like isn't a perfect fit category, that those brands are going, maybe this isn't the show for us. And my only question to that is, then what is the show for you? And I think there's a space there that isn't being fulfilled. If everybody's saying, well, I don't want a consumer video show. What show is that? Mm-hmm. Everybody's getting away from CES because that's too consumer, and then NAB is too professional and broadcast. So where does consumer cameras and camera support live in any other show? And I'm not really sure if there is any space there.
Part of me just wonders if the companies that are saying that they just say that because they don't want to say the real reason, which might be like, we can't afford it, or
maybe, except for this year, they were telling a lot of, it was, if you had canceled in the past, you got to use up your money, or you're not going to get it you'll use it or lose it. And I mean, I would say I would justify anything if I was going to throw the money in a hole or actually show up for a show that might not align with me. Seems like those two things wouldn't actually be the considerations. I think if it's choosing to do it or not do it, regardless, without any other pressure, they're just choosing not to do it because they don't think it's necessary. Yeah. And that is I think it's probably good because it gets rid of a little bit of the noise amongst all the problems. But I was very underwhelmed at the show. Now I haven't been overwhelmed and excited at a show for quite a long time, but there's always something that I'm like get excited about, and there wasn't a whole lot of like, oh man, I can't wait for people to hear about this, or that's such an answer. I saw some of those answers, some of these little things, but nothing that was new thinking in a big way.
I think that typically when that happens, it's camera related. I'm trying to think of something that happened at a show that wasn't camera related that we were very excited about. Maybe the exception might be Edelkrone, which usually comes out with something pretty off the wall and interesting.
Some crazy engineered product that does something you never thought you could do before. I mean, that's the kind of thing. Like, everybody got excited about action cams because now it's a camera I can put somewhere that I've never been able to do before. Yeah. Drone, it's the one in the sky. So until a new category shows up, and of course everybody wanted it to be 360 video, but this seems to be dead in the professional world. Yep. So what is the next thing? And I don't know if there needs to be a next thing, but it's sure not as exciting to cover.
Right. So that's NAB 2022. Seems like, at least even though it was a scaled down show, that trade shows are back on, at least for the time being. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with the next one. Next one, I guess, is Cine Gear in June. I can't imagine that that's not going to happen. I bet that it will, and we'll probably be back on track with CES next year. So at any rate, it was good to be back.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll call it there, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, thanks to everyone. We'll catch you next time. Big thanks to everyone for listening. Big thanks to MPB for sponsoring. As always, if you've been listening to the podcast and you enjoy it, and if you have an Apple device, we'd love it if you went to iTunes and gave us a written 5-star review. It's super helpful for the podcast, and we love reading them. So for Chris Monlux and everyone here at Videomaker, I've been Mike Wilhelm, and you've been listening to the Videomaker podcast. We'll catch you next time.